next topic we're going to do is handling criticism. I think we've been in both ends of it, giving criticism and receiving it. But this topic is specifically being handling criticism. So when you get it, how do you handle it? So Kurt, when someone gives you criticism,
like your wife.
Yes. How do you handle criticism? How do you take it?
You know what? As you get older, I've become very receptive. I listen. And that's one of the things, maybe, you talk about skill sets that you learn from work and apply it to real life. I learned to listen, and I'm analyzing everything in the way it's being delivered, if it's coming in a condescending way, and that will generate how I react to it. But for me, if it's something that's of value and it's really, I'll take accountability for something, right? And I think that takes time, because your immediate reaction is a but. And it's automatically rebuttal to try to justify the actions versus really listening. And then at that point you could be like, okay, and let's move on with regards to some of the positives, and that's how I take it that way. But for me, especially if it's coming from somebody who I respect and they've shown me, if they're showing me something and I respect the way they handle that certain situation, I'm going to be very receptive. I'm not going to be the same way if it's somebody who
it's track record of like trashing.
I'm not going to respect it as much. I'm going to listen, but I'll be like,
is there a hidden agenda?
Ulterior
motive?
And that's just me personally.
Yeah. Good way of handling it. In the past, I think you're right. I think when I was younger, I was a bit more defensive, perhaps. But I think I use the same approach, which is who's it coming from? How much credibility do they have? How much do I trust them or respect them? And sometimes it's just a blind, okay, I'll listen to it. And sometimes, are they, trying to play some games, and maybe I'll have a little, mini investigation in my mind. But I think one of the common things that people do is they become very defensive, which, then you're not focused on the actual critique, right? And getting better. The way I've been looking at it recently is I look at it from the point of view of, if someone's going out of their way to give you criticism, it's not a comfortable position for them to be in. Like, it might seem like people enjoy, being mean and being critical. I don't think so. Like, I think there's very, 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 very few people in the world that enjoy confrontation. And, some people do it more often. Some people are good at it. Some people are not, but still do it. But I think when people are going out of their way to give you a critique, it could be games, but I would say most of the times, maybe 80-90% of the times, it's genuine. So I think if you have the attitude of they're going out of their way to say this to me, so instead of attacking them or attacking their character or being defensive, okay, what are they really saying, right? And listening to it. And sometimes what happens is you give yourself the next day, and and if you swallow your pride, they're probably right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to how the criticism is dispensed, right? Just like Kurt was saying, evaluating the source and whether there's an ulterior motive. Similarly, the approach is critical. But then on the receiver's side, having that maturity that even if somebody else is, giving you what could be constructive criticism, but in a mean way, because that's just the way they are, right? It's about having the maturity to sift through that, separate the message from the messenger, and take from it what you can. I think that's what, if you focus on trying to find the kernel in there that benefits you, it could diffuse the situation. And then of course, if you're dealing with somebody you respect or a friend that is considered a good friend, it's probably a lot easier to take the criticism because it's easier to have an open, honest conversation.
Is it though? Like when it's a friend, like, I don't know, it's toughest for me to give criticism to my friends. Like that's the toughest thing in the world, right? I think when there's a hierarchy, because remember, when you're friends, you're kind of equal, right? When there's a hierarchy, like, parent to child or boss to like employee, I think it's easier because there's no like, blurred line of, command. But I think when it's friends, I don't know, I've always struggled giving,
you know what? I have a couple of friends where we can be very open and honest with each other, no holds barred. Wow. And I think it's been it's a level of respect that we have for each other where if I'm giving them advice, they're going to listen. In the same way they talk to me, I'll listen. There's certain other friends, I'm not listening to them because they've showed me that they don't even follow their own advice. So you've lost all credibility there, right?
I think giving and receiving criticism takes maturity. For me, I can be very defensive. I realize that, but over time, I've grown to hear, again, what is the message that they're trying to convey. So maybe in the moment, I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm not going to respond. But after I digest, step away, reflect, because I'm one of my toughest critics. So it's more so if you're giving me a criticism on something that you thought I didn't do well, I'm really going to dissect and sit on that for a while. When I'm giving somebody criticism, I try not to speak in general terms. Oh, you're a jerk or whatever.
You're always this.
You're always this. I've learned
Universals.
over time not to do that. What I do is I speak to the behavior of what they did. When I was speaking to you and you cut me off, I did not like that you do that. Can you stop doing that? So I'm going to speak specifically to the behavior of what it is they're doing that I don't like, because only then can I give specific examples as to what I'm trying to make be different, what I'm trying to get them to change in their interactions with me, because the way they interact with me may not work for me, but it may work for somebody else. So when I'm giving feedback, I speak to the behavior. So I think it's, again, it comes down to maturity, knowing how and respecting that how I like to receive criticism may not be how somebody else likes to receive criticism. So also changing the method, because you realize it may not have worked that time with that person. So you're always adjusting in order to get the successful change that you're looking for.
Last point on this topic. I don't want to leave this section or this segment to undervalue the criticism. Because I think the natural reaction for most human beings is to discredit the person giving the message. So I don't want us to leave this segment thinking that's the main takeaway. I know that's not what we're saying, but I just wanted the audience at home to look at it or think about it in the point of view of, okay, there are times when there's politics involved and, ulterior motive, but let's just ignore that and don't jump to that being the first thing, right? Or the most common thing. I think if we can all, if we all want to improve genuinely, let's think that's not the reason, because if that's so easy to just justify that's the reason. If we say that's not the reason, but try to listen to the message would be a point that I would love everyone to take away. The second thing I would like everyone to take away is it's not easy delivering a negative message. It really isn't, right? There's only been a few people that I've ever worked for, and I've been around for quite a few years, right? That were good at giving criticism in a really professional, respectable manner, right? So, and that's 1 or 2 out of like 10,000 people that I've worked with or come to know enough, right? So the ratio is very, very little. So it's not that you should expect it, meaning if they don't give it to you in a respectful manner, therefore I'm not going to listen to them, right? I think the reality is like majority will give it to you in a poor way, not to make excuses for it, but just for professional development.
Right.
Just ignore the message because we suck at it too, or most people suck at it. So listen to the message and then try to listen. That's what would be a great takeaway for the audience at home, rather than, well, there's probably some games or some politics you're playing. Because if you jump to that, you're not probably growing as much as you could.
Focus on the message, not the messenger.
Yeah, and again, the ratio is very, very low. There's a couple people that I respect like crazy, and they were one of those that were like not the nice people, perhaps, but they were the truly nice people, right? That were in that bucket, that were good at it. But for the most part, it's not easy to give negative criticism, and let's ignore the message and focus. Sorry, let's ignore the messenger and focus on the message. If you could do that, I think it'd be like vastly beneficial.
And maybe don't think of it as criticism. Think of it as an opportunity to improve. Put a positive spin.
Yeah, exactly.